So at some point in your design business journey, you are going to want to start attracting higher paying clients and start raising your prices. Because at the end of the day, this is really key for having the flexibility and the freedom that you want from your business, both your financial freedom and your time freedom as well. In my first few years as a website designer, I definitely undercharged and took on lots of lower paid projects because obviously I was excited about working with clients and I didn't want to turn work away. So this is totally normal. Everyone has to start somewhere, but it does eventually start to take its toll. And looking back, realistically, it did take me way too long to realize that I needed to raise my prices. I needed to start attracting those higher paid projects because it was just really burning me out. When you're constantly underpricing yourself, it means that in order to make the money that you want to be able to make, you have to take on more and more work and overlapping projects and more things at one time just to make ends meet. This is a surefire way to experience burnout, which we've talked about before on the podcast, and we definitely don't want to be doing that. But taking the leap from those lower paid projects to raising your rates and actually attracting those higher level of clients can feel really daunting because it brings up a lot of imposter syndrome. It can be really demoralizing if you send out a proposal on your higher rate and you get ghosted. And for ages as well, I'd convinced myself that my ideal clients couldn't afford to pay me more. And so I assumed that raising my rates would mean that I would have to end up working with clients who were not my ideal people, or that my actual ideal people just couldn't afford me and so my inquiries would fall off a cliff. Spoiler alert, they didn't, because 10 years later, here I am still working with clients. I've increased my website design prices by more than 6 times since I first started, and I now actually understand all of the wrong assumptions that I made and all of the things that it really takes to go into raising your rates, both from a mindset point of view and a practical point of view. So I wanted to share that with you. And I wanted to remind you that wanting to increase your prices and make more money from your website design project does not make you greedy. You should never feel guilty for wanting to be paid more for your work. That is just what businesses need to do. For starters, inflation and the cost of living in general just means that we need to keep putting our prices up to stay in line with what things are costing us as business owners, but also it goes a lot deeper than the money. Why did you actually go freelance or self-employed in the first place? It likely wasn't necessarily the massive amounts of money that you can make, but more about maybe your time freedom or the ability to be creative, and all of those things you can have more of when you are making more money from the projects that you do take on. So it's about building a secure and scalable business that doesn't stress you out, that gives you the flexibility that you wanted, that gives you the time off that you wanted. And when you're able to take on fewer projects because each one of those projects pay you more, you're naturally going to have more free time and flexibility in your schedule. But when you're overworking yourself and undercharging, that's when you kind of have to look at yourself and be like, wait a minute, I could be doing this in a company and have more stability with the benefits that you get from working in a company and the actual regular income. So you have to look at the point and your why of why you actually started your business in the first place. Also, the fewer higher paying projects that you take on means that you can have more impact on the projects that you do take on. You're not feeling rushed. You're not trying to get everything done and balance loads of balls at the same time. Is that the right phrase? Not sure. When you have more time to spend on a project because you're not feeling rushed, because you're actually being paid well for it, you can fully lean into your creativity. You can fully lean into the impact that you want to deliver for that person, and it just creates an all-around better experience for everyone. When you also move away from that first kind of budget affordable pricing into a higher range of pricing with your projects as well, just looking at the website design industry as a whole, you're actually future-proofing your business to be less at risk of AI and new tech that's coming in, because the types of people that are going to be turning to use AI tools to create their websites for them are the types of people who probably weren't going to pay a lot for a website in the first place. So they're going with more affordable budget options. And what happens with AI and new tools is that those are now going to be alternative options for those budget and affordable design services. So repositioning yourself with more premium clients and more premium prices means that you're not really attracting people who would choose AI over working with you, because a lot of these types of clients, they want an expert and an actual human to be designing them something really custom. They want a specialist. They want someone that is going to completely take the whole project off their hands so that they don't even need to mess around with AI tools, because they are busy people who are running successful businesses which allow them to have bigger budgets for these projects. So it is about so much more than just the money, but also, let's be real, you're not a non-for-profit. You are someone who wants to make a good income from your living. You don't want to just be staying afloat with your business. You want to be growing something that is thriving and sustainable and that you feel secure in into the future as well, and that you enjoy, which is really important. So something I noticed as soon as I started charging more for my services and being confident in raising my prices is not only did I have more of that space for creativity and impact, and it just gave me more time to work on my business or to just have more free time in my schedule and take afternoons off at the beach, that kind of thing. I also found that assumption that I had in my head where, oh, if I charge more for my services and attract a more premium client, they're not going to be the types of people I enjoy working with because I enjoy working with smaller businesses and they're easier to work with. I was telling myself all of these things. I was telling myself that higher priced projects and higher paying clients were going to be really demanding and there was going to be so much pressure on the project and I wasn't going to enjoy working with these people. In fact, the opposite actually ended up happening, where I found that the higher paying clients are typically less demanding than when you're working with people on a tighter budget. Obviously, this is a generalization and there's people that buck the trend on each end. But in general, clients with higher budgets are typically more comfortable with spending that amount of money because they typically have more finances than they have time available because they're running more established businesses and things like that. They are often more willing to hand everything over to an expert and pay for a specialist and an expert to do this for them because they have the money but they are low on time and they are absolutely low on the inclination to do any of this themselves. They just want to hand it off, and so often they are actually easier to work with. Also, just in general, don't assume that even if your preferred type of ideal client is a startup or a really small business who's just getting started, take your mind out of other people's pockets because you cannot assume what someone can afford just because their business is starting out or it's really, really small. Doesn't mean that they are not a premium client who is willing to pay a higher price. I still work with a lot of small businesses and people who are starting their businesses from the get-go who are willing to pay a higher price because their priorities are just different and what they're willing to spend on certain things is different. What is expensive to one person is not expensive to another person. It is all relative and you cannot assume someone's financial situation just from the stage in business that they're at. So that took me ages to get my head around because I just assumed I want to work with small businesses because they are easier to work with and nicer, but they only have small budgets. Actually, neither of those things are really true. They're not necessarily easier to work with and they don't necessarily have smaller budgets. So I wanted to get that out of the way because I know that some of you listening might be thinking, well, I want to attract this certain type of client, so I can't raise my prices and I can't attract a higher paid client because that's not my dream client. Just wanted to put that to you before I go into the rest of this because that might just be a story that you're telling yourself because I know I told myself that for years. And what if you're thinking, but I don't know if I'm ready to raise my prices yet, or the being ready is holding you back? Here are a few things that might be indicators that it is time to raise your prices, and yes, you are ready. First of all, if you haven't actually raised them in over a year, inflation literally happens. Think about how much your own personal and business costs have gone up in the last year. You need to be raising your price at the very, very least and minimum to be in line with how inflation is going up. Also, if you are feeling like how I was describing, where you're constantly working and you constantly feel busy, but you're not actually hitting your income goals, or it feels like you're on a hamster wheel of working with clients and doing all of the projects, but it feels like you're not getting the revenue to actually compensate you well enough for that, that's probably a clue that it's time to raise your prices and they probably weren't high enough in the beginning. Also, if you have gained new skills, either by taking a course or doing some training or investing in yourself, or literally just you have worked on several more projects since you last raised your prices and you've gained experience that way and you've improved your skills that way. Every time you design a new website, you are learning new things and refining your skills, which is why some designers even consider raising their prices after every few projects at a set amount of time. Or if you are finding yourself fully booked and fully in demand with people inquiring to work with you, but you actually don't have space to take them on, that is also a sure sign that you are ready to raise your prices. This is what we work on inside my program, In Demand Designer, getting you to a place of being in demand and having people want to work with you so that you not only have the ability to choose which projects you actually do take on, and so you end up working with more dream clients and dreamy projects, but because you have demand for working with you at your current rate, this is a sign that you can absolutely have some wiggle room in your prices and have the confidence to put your prices up. This is what one of my beta students messaged me about last month. So she had taken In-Demand Designer and she literally messaged me a few weeks ago saying that because she feels so much more confident in her messaging and her content and the way she's attracting the right people and feeling more in demand, she's now looking at putting her prices up with confidence because she's done all of that. But how do we actually get to a point where we are increasing our prices and attracting those higher paying clients to actually pay those prices? The first thing that you want to work on really is your mindset, which we've talked a bit about, but generally remembering to take your assumptions out of other people's pockets, remembering that actually charging more doesn't necessarily mean the client work is going to be harder or that you can't attract your dream clients who you've already been working with, but also making sure that you're pushing imposter syndrome away, which again, we've talked about here on the podcast. And it is so normal to think, who am I to charge this? Or how can I raise my prices for what I do? If you are ever in need of any motivation or mindset shifts for that, remember to take a look at your previous testimonials and comments that other clients have made about your work, and just remember that the impact that you've had on those people, you absolutely deserve to be compensated in the right way for that impact that you've had on people. Your clients are paying for your years of experience, not the time it takes you to create a project. So if you're feeling imposter syndrome, like, but it doesn't take me that long to design a website, so how can I charge more for it? People want quick results and they want streamlined results, and you wouldn't be able to give those quick results if it wasn't for your experience and your expertise. That's what people are paying for. They're not paying for the hours that it takes you. And if you think, oh, actually my process takes a really long time, that's probably because of all the extra work and things that you put into it. And that's what it takes to deliver the quality that you deliver. So regardless of which end of that spectrum you are at, you need to stop equating the money for the amount of time something is taking you. It's about your expertise, it's about your experience, and it's about the convenience that someone has an expert to do something for them. And one thing that did always worry me was about getting rejections as well from potential clients. If I sent a proposal, what happens if they come back and say, this is way too expensive? Like, I felt so awkward about having to potentially have those conversations. But in 10 years, I've really only been questioned about my prices or had someone push back on the prices a handful of times. Typically, either someone will say yes or they will say, actually, that's not right for me right now, but thank you so much. In 10 years, I've probably had 1 or 2 people actually pick at, well, why is it so expensive or anything like that. And those conversations are really not that hard when you feel confident in what you're delivering and you have a way to communicate that as well, which we'll come on to. So you need to work on your mindset first. The second thing that you want to do is do an audit of your current offers, the different types of services and packages and prices that you currently offer. Look at them and think, do they still reflect your energy, your skills, the client results that you're getting? Does the price that you've put on them feel like a fair compensation? Do they actually reflect the workload that you actually end up doing for the client as well? Or do you constantly find yourself doing add-ons or getting asked to do the same things and then absorbing that into the price as well? Make sure that your packages are actually aligned with what you want to be delivering and what you typically do deliver, and then update the price to reflect that and everything that we've said. You also want to do an audit and an upgrade of your portfolio and your case studies, and making sure that your previous testimonials and your case studies that you're showing are relevant to those ideal clients that you definitely want to be attracting, those higher paying clients, and that they're not just saying, here's the pretty website that I designed, but they're actually explaining the journey that you have taken your client on from A to Z, and how therefore other potential clients can imagine themselves in that place. Then I think probably the most important part of this is knowing your value and being able to communicate that value as well. If you're able to justify how much you charge, you know the value you bring, you know what makes you stand out, you actually feel excited to send that proposal, not nervous, oh my God, is the client actually going to go with this or not? Because you know that what you're delivering is fantastic, and knowing it isn't just enough, but you have to also be able to communicate it as well. And that is something that we work on inside In-Demand Designer. There is a whole module designed to help you communicate exactly what it is you do and the value that you actually bring to your ideal clients, so that you can use this on your website, in your proposals, in your content as well, to attract the right clients and actually convert them and feel confident in the prices that you're charging. Because you're not just selling a website, you're selling a solution, and you want to shift how you're communicating that as a solution which has outcomes and benefits that actually solve real problems and desires that your clients have. You also want to make sure that your client experience is living up to your pricing as well, or at least it feels premium if you are trying to attract those premium types of clients. Your client onboarding and offboarding processes need to be streamlined. They need to feel supportive for the client, because you could deliver a beautiful website, but if that whole experience has felt awkward or clunky, or you haven't been very responsive, that is the difference between a client coming back to you and referring other clients to you versus one that just goes to you and you never really hear anything from. So you really need all of those things, I think, in order to confidently raise your prices. Yes, you could go and slap another few £100 onto your prices now, but if you want to actually be doing that with confidence and not backtracking on that all the time, you need to have those things in place. But in terms of actually attracting the higher paying clients that are going to pay those prices, that is where having a really, really solid messaging, positioning, and content strategy comes into it. You want to be positioning yourself as a specialist, as that premium website designer, and building a personal brand that people are actually excited to work with and that is really memorable. Positioning yourself as that specialist, as that expert, as that authority in your messaging, and being able to communicate that. As I say, we talk through that and we create you a whole bank of messaging angles inside In Demand Designer to help you with that. What it does is it sets you up as the go-to in someone's head. You become someone's vision board designer because you've built a brand that is about all of those things, not just about the style of your website designs and not just about your pricing. You don't want to be compared on those things, especially the pricing. You need to be building that personal brand, and that happens with your messaging, and it happens with a content strategy that is designed to get those messages across effectively, attracting the right people into your audience and actually creating content that nurtures that audience and converts them into those higher paying clients as well. And inside my program, In Demand Designer, that is what we build for you. We build that content funnel that attracts, nurtures, and converts clients, makes you in demand, which then makes you feel confident to raise your prices even more. I'm going to leave a link to the program in the description, so definitely go and check that out. It's just launched this week, so there is a £100 discount currently, and an extended 6-month payment plan available if you join before the 1st of May. So go and check that out. And if you do have any questions about the program, please do message me on Instagram. I'm at by.rosanna. But I hope this was a helpful insight into how you can raise your prices. You absolutely have probably a lot of reasons to do so already, but also how can you do this confidently, and how can you ensure that you're putting practices into place so that you can continue to raise your prices and continue to actually attract the clients that will pay those prices too. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon.